The Bible's very funny. Peter in the Bible. And as a matter of fact, in the Bible you notice several things about the Bible that many people don't realize. For example, if you do deep study, like we all have done, you find out the Bible gives us insight into many things. For example, you might be surprised to find out the Bible discusses different modes of transportation. There's even motor vehicles mentioned in the Bible. For example, the very first motor vehicle, the Plymouth Jehovah had, he drove Adam and Eve out in a fury. And of course, King David, his triumph could be heard throughout the land. And the apostles, of course, they drove around in one accord. Before I go on, I'd like to tell you that this act has been inspired by the greatest comedian in the Bible. Of course, that was Samson. In Samson's final performance, he brought down the house. There are many lessons in the Bible, of course, lessons for us to imitate and others to avoid. For example, the Bible touches on sensitive subjects such as drug addiction. As a matter of fact, Nebuchadnezzar, example, he was on grass for 7 years. Also gives us examples of finance, things that we're concerned about. Noah, for example, good example. His example in finance, Noah was floating his stocks while everyone else was in liquidation. And of course, Pharaoh's daughter, she went down to the bank of the Nile and drew out a little profit. And of course, the things the Bible touches on you may not be familiar with, sports. The Bible has a lot of sports. My favorite sport is baseball. Matter of fact, the Bible begins talking about baseball. If you read Genesis 1:1, it says, in the big inning. You read on a little bit, it tells you about the game. Eve stole first, Adam stole second, Cain struck out Abel. The second game mentioned in the Bible, unfortunately, between the giants and the angels was rained out. The Bible teaches us things about life, things that we need to know. Of course, we pay attention to these things. For example, insurance. Tells us a lot about insurance. The first mention of insurance, of course, was again Adam and Eve. They realized they needed more coverage. And of course, later on, David gave Goliath a piece of the rock. Now, we study the Bible. We know the Bible gives us commandments. The 10 Commandments, famous Bible gives. Of course, there was punishment for breaking those commandments. You know, there was one man, though, set an example. He broke all 10 of the commandments, and yet he was not punished. And of course, that was Moses. Of course, not all the things that are recorded in the Bible. Some things that we are able to find out later. For example, archaeology can tell us some things the Bible left out. Science. As a matter of fact, many conversations have been verified like this. For example, archaeology, we found, you know what the last thing Lot said to his wife? He said, "Are you sure no one's following us?" And of course, finally, as members of the worldwide organization to help people, we take great pride in the fact that we can go anywhere in the world, go to Kingdom Hall and pretty much study the same thing, use the same terms, terminology. A few things are different. For example, do you know what they call the elders in the Federal Republic of Germany? That's right, German Shepherds. Let me tell you a little story about these two brothers that were out and they decided to call on this sister. Give her a little encouragement. Well, they went by her house and the brothers went to the front door there. They knocked on the door. Nobody came to the door. They saw her car was in the driveway. Well, she must be home. So they knocked a little bit more. Nobody came to the door. Well, the one brother thought, well, I can't just leave. I'll have to leave this sister a note. So he wrote down a scripture on a piece of paper, thinking he was, pretty funny. He wrote down the scripture, Revelation chapter 3 and verse 20. And there it says, "Look, I am standing at the door and knocking. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into his house and take the evening meal with him and he with me." That was pretty funny. The sister, of course, next day at the Kingdom Hall, he wanted to find his sister. He'll tell her that they had been by, wanted to visit with her, perhaps give her some encouragement. And he says, went up to the sister, we were at your door yesterday, we knocked, and we saw your car was home. We wondered maybe that everything was okay. And without saying a word, she hands him a piece of paper. The piece of paper had another scripture written on it. It was Genesis chapter 3, verse 10, and he lifted it up and it read, "Finally he said, 'Your voice I heard in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself.'" Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now our next act, if you notice on